Okay, starting off with Taz like we always do, where a dog sniffs her from behind. And she had been out with my dogs a lot, but it's really about the pressure that triggers her, which you're going to see a couple of times. The first time caught me off guard because I was looking elsewhere, and I just did pressure to settle her down. Right there. So see, I missed all that hyper focusing, and I just did pressure up, and then I did a little extra tug because I could feel her body language lingering. And then I just hold. And then when she's looking at me and I feel her body relax, then I relax. And if she was to look right at Dusty again, it would just be, rinse and repeat. That show of intensity, we set it up pretty quickly again because I want to do it a few times to just set a tone with her where I'm a little bit more ready. And this time I just do more Ecollar as well as just pressure up in the air to settle her down. So here I'm waiting, loose leash, Ecollar tap up in the air. When I feel her body language settle, I settle. It's not about the sit. It's about I can feel her muscles through the leash when she calms down a bit. I could also get in front of her as well, but I chose not to this time. That can help speed up the process. Since she's a dog that redirects, and I know she's on muzzle, I'm not afraid, but because she's a dog that redirects, I'd rather not get in front of her. I'd rather her settle down beside me if possible. So we test her again. We set her up again. I know you don't see Dusty, but he's right there. And she's choosing not to hyper-focus on him anymore. See her constantly checking in with me now? So now we can move on to the next step, which is back to the sniffing work and the movement work because she's avoiding instead. I even pet him to see if it triggers her to hyper-focus on him again. She's still uncomfortable. She's still glancing. But I mean, that's why she's reacting, because she's uncomfortable. But now we can move on. So we let Dusty loose, let him run around, and we just work on some pressure that way. Because now I've felt how intense she is. Look at that. And I recall her away. So it's a lot of pressure, and then I recall her away. But I felt how intense she was when she reacted, and I felt like it just wasn't. It was discomfort. It was like a hissy fit. Not that she wouldn't actually put teeth on a dog. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm like, okay, we can really desensitize her pretty quickly because I can feel her through the leash. So that's what I'm doing here, and letting Dusty be free, more free roaming, so he feels more comfortable. Now, I wanted to show this again. Now, I just wanted to reiterate that I can't do this with very many of the dogs that come in. I had a sense about her that she could be put in her place and warm up really quickly, or at least tolerate my pack. So this is a ton of pressure. She's sandwiched in. Look at her cutting her eyes at him. I'm waiting to see what decision she makes. The moment I realize she's going to commit to looking away from him, I'm going to get her out of that situation. That's her reward, okay? She gave me what I wanted, which was to ignore, to avoid, whatever the case is, and then I reward that with space. Now, it's also really important that I point out that I would never do this with any of my other dogs. Dusty would be the only one because he doesn't put excessive pressure on dogs. And so that's why I'm also able to do this, because he's not pushing her, sniffing her, invading her space immensely. This is more of me just kind of testing her out. I want you to watch her. She's avoiding. She's not looking at him because he's kind of facing her. And watch what happens when he walks away, or even that look away. See, she glanced at him. She's looking up at me. Now watch what happens when he walks away. Look, see that focus? That's part of that herding instinct is, do I need to come over there? But I just wanted to point that out, as when it looked like he was putting pressure on her, she was avoiding. But she takes every opportunity when the dog is not paying attention to her to potentially pursue, and that can lead into a reaction. And we've seen her do that with people, where she holds it together and she's eyeballing someone, and then the person moves away and she reacts. So she could very well do that with the dogs too. So we have to keep an eye on all these things and learn about her, learn all of her little tricks and triggers and her personality. So that's another reason we are doing all of these pressure tests. I continued to do some recalls away from Dusty moving around the yard and petting Dusty and just seeing how she did. And all in all, she was making really good choices, so we moved on. Now, my German Shepherd Dakota had a more intense energy, and she was more submissive. So see how I'm, especially after seeing her reaction to Dusty, I'm giving her no choice. She has to let Dakota sniff her bum. This puts the dog in a more submissive mindset rather than being fueled by that eye contact and getting charged up and aroused. The dog is just being forced into a position where they have to just kind of take it. And then she learns, oh, that wasn't so bad. Nothing bad happened to me. And it can kind of give you a window into building some trust as well. So we did some eye focus stuff. And I'll be honest, I don't know if she was good. There's a little bit of frustration. If she was good because of what we went through with Dusty, some accountability and desensitizing. Or if it was Dakota's more dominant pushy energy that she was being submissive to. You know, time will tell. But she did feel comfortable smelling Dakota, which was really nice to see. If the dog is doing good, they get to smell as well. And it starts to become, you know, a more balanced relationship. But we continued with that eye pressure because I really felt like she could get good with my pack fast. And I was right. She did. She went on 3 or 4 hikes with them and a couple of pack walks where the most she did was toss her head, frustrated when they bump into her or put a little pressure on her. But it was really good, really nice to see. But this is some of the work that we do. See, pressure again, pressure off. And I take her away because she did so good. Now, the other thing I really love to do with the dogs, especially with Dakota, because she's stalling, because she's intimidating, is I put her in a down and I walk the dogs around her. And sometimes if they weren't comfortable with her, they get more comfortable because she's laying down. But when it came to eye contact, she pretty much still avoided. And to be honest, even though she spent so much time with my dogs, she never got really, really comfortable with that eye focus, that eye contact. The one she tolerated it from the most was Dusty, my border collie, who you saw earlier, because she learned that Dusty's not intrusive. Most dogs are intrusive. Okay, moving on. We've got little Happy Dog. I wanted to make sure that she wasn't going to trigger with Happy's fast, rapid movements, which can trigger the play drive of the brain. And she was easily triggered by dogs vocalizing. So I wanted to make sure she knew Happy was off limits. That was the main goal of this, is that if you see Happy, you turn the other way. Happy is older, cannot even handle a paw or a nudge from the muzzle. So I wanted to make sure that she knew Happy was totally off limits. So I'm correcting her right here, so I'm showing it again. That was an e-collar correction and pressure up, kind of double pressure up, because I felt her resist until she completely, she looked up at me and she's like, okay, all right, fine. And so I really wanted to make a strong point. And this is a dog that redirects, please remember. And so it was an e-collar correction along with that pressure up until I felt her calm down. Then we go back to desensitizing. And I'm trying to really watch, what is it she's looking at? Is she responding to Happy's movements, to Chris? Chris acting all silly, trying to get Happy to bark. Happy's deaf, and so this is the bark sign. But it's, you know, I think Happy knew something was up too. She was like, maybe I shouldn't bark so much around this dog. But anyway, that's what we're doing, is it's correction for hyperfocus, and then lots of desensitizing, proofing, all of that. I want her to look away. I want her to see Happy acting a certain way and look away. So that right there needed a knee collar tap. If you watch it again, you'll see her kick her head to me really quickly. So that was me. And then she's still glancing. Now she's avoiding. See her change her body positioning. Got to remember Happy's deaf. So that's why Chris is using huge movements to try to get her attention. So we can't finish until Happy can run around and bark and Taz looks away. You know, that's really the goal here. And then we proofed this maybe 3 times throughout 3 sessions. And then she was solid, being able to be inside in place. And Happy could run around and be silly. And I didn't have to watch her like a hawk. And here's just a quick reminder, do not just work on stationary or movement. You have to have both. Just because one is solid does not mean the other will be solid. So we have happy barking as I'm walking around.